Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Talking with Coach Troy podcast, where I talk to really interesting people about the world of sport, business, and all kinds of other stuff as well. Today, my special guest is Charlene Grabowski. She is the CEO of Perimeter Bicycle and here at Tucson. And that's really interesting because a lot of you have probably heard of the El Tour de Tucson. Well, she's the person in charge. Charlene, it's great to have you on my show.
Thank you, Troy. Great to be with you. I'm just going to call you Coach during the whole thing because I love that title. So
All right.
thank
Well,
you, Coach, for having me.
absolutely. No, I'm glad you could come on. So I've been in Tucson now for about 12 years, and prior to that, I would hold my cycling camps. I've had cycling and triathlon camps out here since 2001, and I've always loved this area for the outdoor opportunities, the cycling. I mean, it is one of the I don't know the best destinations in the United States for anybody to come, especially during the winter months, to train. And so the El Tour has been around for a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the El Tour?
Yeah, so we're in our 38th year. The tour, the name of the company, Perimeter Bicycling, got its name from the founder, who was a brilliant guy by the name of Richard DeBernardis. And Richard was a cyclist himself, and he would do perimeter rides, like around the United States, like around Japan, like around Fiji. So he just loved that perimeter thought. When he came to Tucson, he put the ride together as Perimeter Bicycling and did what was then the perimeter of Tucson, but Tucson has changed over time, and the overlap of where the city and the county overlap, you can't really tell. So all of a sudden, we have just grown, like many other cities, to be a very dispersed kind of environment. But it's the ride itself is really a platform for nonprofits. So we host the ride and we invite nonprofits to come and use it to raise funds for themselves. And over the 37 years, we have raised over $100 million for nonprofits. And that's actually a small percentage of the ride because we are so fortunate to get big name folks here, Olympians and professional cyclists and retired professional cyclists. And it is part of the community and the culture of Tucson, the ride. And some people call it a nuisance, and I call it an amazing nuisance. It's one day, and we close down a fair amount of the streets, and some people get annoyed with us, but the majority of people are out there ringing their bells and offering water and making cookies and all kinds of things. So it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's such an iconic event, and it just highlights so many different aspects of Tucson and what a cool community we are overall. So you just took over the role as CEO recently, right? Within the past year and a half. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into your leadership position.
Sure. So I'm not a cyclist. I'm a volleyball player from way back. Haven't played in many years, but I used to play high school, college, and then USVBA and two-person on the beach and things like that on the East Coast. So I expected to be a professional volleyball player for the rest of my life, and obviously that didn't turn out. So when I went to school, I have a degree in radiologic technology, and I used to work in a cardiac cath lab, angiography lab, did CT scanning. So I have a medical background from the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. I'm from Pittsburgh. And then I realized that I loved to teach. And so I joined General Electric in 1982 as an application specialist, teaching physicians how to use medical equipment. And I realized pretty shortly in about a 2-year period of time that I was doing a lot of technical presentations for the sales guys, and I was making this much money and they were making that much money. And so I jumped to the dark side and became a sales rep. And this was back in the late 80s. I was on New York on Long Island, and here I was, a young 20 plus year old. And my background was clinical. My competition, if I may, were old white guys who played golf. And that didn't fit who I was. So I had to sell what I knew. And it's probably the first time that I started to realize that playing to your strengths and playing to your difference really paid off. And so I could understand the needs of a radiology department, cardiac department. Go forward, I did a management track at GE Healthcare, had the good fortune to be the gopher for the CEO for 2 years. And it's one of those jobs that you think you're never going to get through it, and you come out on the other side and you just have learned so much. And that's probably where my leadership sort of fundamentals came forward, where I really started to understand them. And then had multiple management jobs all over the country. And then I got an opportunity to come out to Intuit. And I was the commercial leader at Intuit for the QuickBooks product. So I led the sales force there, about 500 people on the phone. It was also a great experience because I learned how to take all that I was doing with capital equipment, big equipment, and convert it into a 7-minute phone call at Intuit. And I was there for a few years and got recruited back to GE as the Chief Learning and Development Officer. And initially, when I was asked to come back, my big ego said, they said, we want you to do that. I'm like, I'm not the training girl. All along, the VP, who had better insight than myself, said, what do you love to do? And I said, well, I like to teach, I like to coach. And he goes, well, I think you'd be perfect. In fact, we've lost our heart with our customers, and we need for you to help us bring it back. So I did that, and then I thought I found the best job in the whole wide world. And 2 years later, became the general manager for the X-ray and women's healthcare business, and then went on to be the Chief Operating Officer for GE. This takes a while because I'm old, Troy, so you bear with me. I'm almost there. Anyway, in November of 2013, I had a heart attack. I was working out and was with my trainer and didn't feel very good, knowing enough about my body and knowing enough about healthcare. I was only 3 blocks from a hospital. Ended up there in the cath lab in about 10 minutes with my LAD, with left anterior descending artery, 100% occluded. It's called the Widowmaker for purposeful reasons. And I was very fortunate. I have no damage, or had no damage, but I do have a stent in my left LAD. And then I decided to take a little easier, and so took a region manager job and got, I could live anywhere, and so I chose to come back out here into Tucson. I was living in Milwaukee at the time. And then in 2017, another significant emotional event, I got cancer. And a very unique cancer that attacked my heart again. It's called amyloidosis. Very rare, 7% of the population, but very scary with a terrible prognosis, but so fortunate to have Mayo Clinic so nearby. They diagnosed it pretty quickly and did chemo for 4 months. And then I was like, I'm back. But I retired from GE in January 2018. And that was hard for me because I went from GE executive to sick girl to now who am I? And had sort of an identity crisis and started getting involved in nonprofits, the American Heart Association, El Grupo. And through El Grupo, people got to know me in the community, and I was given this opportunity to come to El Tour and help out.
That's great. No, what a great story. Thanks for sharing that, by the way. That's a fantastic story you have. So the El Tour, the past few years, there's been a little bit of a decline in participation numbers. And I remember years ago, I remember seeing, 5, 6, 7,000 people were riding, and there's been a slight decline. But my understanding is the trending is starting to be more positive now, and things are starting to pick back up since you've been in your seat. So what are some of the things that you've done to help elevate the brand again and to get people excited about El Tour?
Yeah. So I think it's important, especially for your business leaders, to understand that I walked into an insolvency situation. The company had a fair amount of debt. And the first thing you do in a situation like that is I always look at people, process, and technology. And obviously look at the financials. And when you look at the financials, for me, I immediately go to process and say, what's there, what isn't there, so on and so forth. And the organization had grown up without growing its infrastructure to support it. And Richard, who was a big idea guy with wonderful vision for cycling, did not necessarily keep the infrastructure moving forward. And it's founder syndrome. You can read a Harvard Business case about it. You're almost too close to the situation to really appreciate what's going on. So going into this, I think it was good that I didn't have much cycling experience because I didn't have any bias. I also didn't know the community very well, and so I didn't have any bias there also. So right. Jumping into something that in some ways seems so oblique to what you're doing in life is it lets you jump in without bias. So immediately I looked at, first of all, the processes, what was in place. Did we have the right resources, the right people in place to do it? And then technology. So I came away with 3 priorities. One was financial growth and stability. Both of those equally as important. Number 2 was refreshing the brand. The brand was strong. And what I did not need to rebrand, but I needed to refresh, make it cleaner, contemporary, more representative of who we are. And then technology, I invested as part of the branding refresh, a new logo, a new website, a new registration tool, and then including a new route for this year. Mm-hmm. So I didn't change the fundamentals of the company in terms of the philosophy, who they are, what they are, great nonprofit platform, a great ride for many people, but that's what I did to focus on. And so this year, so last year, it was just like a spinning wheel. I think back and go, maybe it was really good that I didn't know what I was getting myself into, because I would have been scared. But because there was some, naivete associated with it, you just go, and you go back to your fundamentals. And as a result of that, people noticed. The first thing was to get out in the community and reassure them that the ride was going to happen. Reassure them that our financial footing was coming into place. Reassure them that we were here bigger than ourselves to serve the needs of the community. And my marketing and communications people helped us do that. We turned on social media, which really was not invested in to the level that it needed to be. And then this cycling community is amazing in terms of a giving community. Everybody wants to share their ideas with you. You have to filter through that and make sure. But when you say, I need some help, they're there. They are absolutely there. So I've learned a lot about cycling. I've learned a lot about our community. I've learned a lot about the cycling community, and I just love the people. It's a great group of people.
Yeah, no, it really is. And so many business leaders are cyclists, which is an interesting thing as well, right? Yes. In fact, they say that cycling is the new golf. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially at this time, right? Where what can you do? You know, I had somebody interview me a little while ago and say, you know, nothing has changed for cycling through COVID. And I say everything has changed for cycling during COVID, especially competitive folks who are riding in a peloton, riding with a team. They can't do that anymore. You know, at least right now they can't do it. The distancing between even two people, just because of the speed at which you're going at and the opportunity for droplets to get on another person, it goes beyond 6 feet to whatever you read the literature, 12 feet, 20 feet. So a lot of camaraderie. There are independent cyclists, we know that, but we know there's a lot of people who find camaraderie, collaboration, competitive, you know, people pushing you by being in a team. So it's been very disruptive. At the same time, bicycle shops are on fire.
Right.
Everybody who had a bike is like retooling it and getting it tuned up and going out and cycling. So yes, there's been a lot of change, but it's been a big opportunity also.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whenever something like this happens, it seems like certain industries rise to the top and take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah.
So looking at the 2020 L Tour, what are the goals and objectives?
Yeah, so I'll just start with safety first. And, you know, we're trying to be socially responsible. I have three, again, priorities, with safety being the overall tenet is medical. We have to be safe medically. We have to be safe financially, and we have to be safe in terms of the optics in the community. And so I put a medical advisory board together to help me. And without naming names, I have a nationally known doctor who's been advising on Churchill Downs and the Kentucky Derby, NASCAR, and NBA. And I attended his webinar and asked him if he would join my advisory board, and he said, yes, I'll help you. Again, he's a cyclist and he wants to help. Then I have two local physicians, a very high level physician at Banner, and then a family practice doc who's an avid cyclist. And then I have technical operations leader from USA Cycling who manages all professional sanctioned kind of cycling. And I'm asking their opinion. So we had our first meeting and, you know, varied opinions in terms of yes, no, but the bottom line is it's too soon to tell. So we're gonna have another meeting in 30 days. But, you know, again, if you don't have the expertise, you go out and you get it. You know, don't be afraid to be vulnerable about, I can't make these decisions by myself. I know what I need to do financially and what my toll gates are there, but I need help. And so the medical advisors who are also then, and my board helping me with the social optics of what we need to do. But as of this point, I'm full bore, go. And oh, by the way, keeping in mind how I might do some things differently. Additionally, looking for additional revenue streams. We're going to be selling merchandise. Mm-hmm. We've sold it in the past, but now we're going to crank that up because people buy the gear. So again, it's we're given a little bit of a challenge, but you can keep moving in your straight path. We have contingencies built, if, what, then, you know, and your B plan isn't enough anymore. You need a C and a D and get ready for an E if you need it. But also look at what are your strengths. And so merchandising becomes one of those things that we can use to augment our revenue.
So what can the local business community do to help support the event? Because we all benefit here in Tucson.
Yeah. This community to that point is amazing. We have a title sponsor, which I'm proud to share, is Banner University Medicine, and they are sticking with us. Tucson Medical Center sticking with us. Casino del Sol, Rotary, those guys are sticking with us. And then we're having conversations with a lot of the other sponsors, and that what they're saying is, you know what, we weren't able to spend our money on some of the other events that got canceled this year, so we do have funds. Right. So yes, we're interested. Give us a call in June after the state opens up and we see what happens. So our funnel of sponsors, people willing to talk to us, has grown. I have a new resource, a new account executive. She's doing an amazing job. So I think, once again, we've been out in the public talking about what we're doing. We need more, right? Last year we had 6,000 riders. You know what? I would love for that number to be that number and greater. Probably won't happen, but I'm ready either way. So I've got to augment it with other things. Sponsorships help me, as well as then merchandising. But community sponsors are critical to our success.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do people find out more about the event and register?
Yeah. So it's really simple. ltourdetucson.org will take you to our website, which will then fill you in on all the updated news. We have training tips in there. We have interviews with people who can guide us. We're so fortunate. Gord Fraser is a good friend of ours who was an El Tour de France participant. Jimmy Riccatello, Rob Alvarez. I mean, these folks are just willing to help us. So we interview them, and Bobby Verana has ridden our ride already and given us comments. And so there's lots of good information there. There's a way to register. There's a way to bring your nonprofit team and register as well. And then there's always the opportunity to donate if you're so inclined.
That's great. So visiting the website gives you all the information you need. We want to encourage all cyclists to head out here to Tucson, because
Right.
you can't beat the riding, especially in that November timeframe.
Yeah.
And the routes changed a little bit, right?
We're going south. Yeah, we're going south. The community of Saharita and Green Valley have been begging for us to come. It's going to be faster this year because it's a bit more open. Again, keeping safety top of mind, beauty, and then cost. I'm hopeful to take some cost out of what it cost me to put my barricades and the police in place. It's one of the safest rides in the country because we close the roads. So we call them the fast guys and girls, that love to come because they can just go out, just turn it on and go really fast. So it's not sanctioned, but it is professionally timed. So everybody will have the opportunity to use it for resume building or whatever, as well as practice. And so those guys and girls sort of sometimes draw other people to come. But there are 20% of our people do this as bucket list items. We have 80% retention and 20% new people. And again, especially in the 100, we know they come because it's a bucket list item. Sure. And to your point about Tucson, I mean, it's a mecca for riding. We have it all. You want to go fast and straight, you can. You want to take a 9,000 foot mountain climb, you can do that. You want to go around in a circle really fast, you can do that. So Outside Adventure Magazine last year said it was rated the #2 city in the country for cycling, burrito eating, climbing city in the United States. And absolutely. I think that's a really good comprehensive look. Besides which, we have the best people of any place in the world, I think. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a great area, great culture. Well, Charlene, thank you very much for being on my podcast. I really appreciate that. And I'll do everything I can to help promote El Tour. Let's get some people out here. We'd love that. And I really appreciate the time. Thank you for asking. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Be sure you tune into other podcasts that we're doing. And until we meet again next time, train safe and train smart.